Hello everyone, I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to my channel. Kathleen Kennedy's name has been all over the news lately, certainly with the Star Wars news and rumors and so forth, and there was a rumor at one point that Kevin Feige was going to replace her. Everybody knew that was a silly rumor though. But both their names showed up in the news quite a bit, and it had me thinking about the role of producer in storytelling. And I thought that would be one angle on this subject that I could cover and speak to a bit, because I think that's the problem we're seeing with the Star Wars universe in general. Aside from the enforcement of political agendas into the scripts and so forth, I think the changing role of producer is a problem in people's abilities to keep up with it. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about that. A producer in general is basically the project manager of a film. Depending on the individual producer, they can be more or less involved with some of the more creative aspects. They certainly oversee scripts. They will do the hiring, certainly, of writers, directors, and so forth. But there was always the option throughout film history, again, aside from some individuals who like to be more creatively hands-on, there's always been the option and the tendency for producers to be more the project managers and hands-off on the creative aspects of films. They'll have veto power in the end, of course, but they don't really get into the stories and really get into pushing things together creatively. That's historically. The Marvel Cinematic Universe changed all of that. Now, with the advent of a shared cinematic universe, we found that the producer who's very hands-on in the creative process of this universe is vital to the success of any shared universe. And Kevin Feige has shown us that. That's one of the reasons why the DC shared universe has never gotten off the ground and is still faltering and floundering, because they've never had one person in charge with the right vision, with the right power to direct everything and bring it all together. They've tried to go in after the fact and sort of name some people, but not really give them enough of the power. Kevin Feige and the amazing job that he's done has shown us how necessary it is to have someone in that position. That was supposed to be the role of Kathleen Kennedy when Disney acquired Lucasfilm. She was appointed to be the Kevin Feige of that universe, to be the one in charge, to look forward ahead, to make sure everything is working together continuity-wise, to make sure we're all serving a vision. She didn't have a vision, though. Her one mandatory stipulation was that the hero of the films should be a woman. We know that she doesn't have any kind of vision or any kind of direction she wants this universe to head in terms of story, because she hires people and allows them to do whatever they want. Now, Kevin Feige doesn't come in and write the scripts by any means. One of the great things about the execution of his job is that he does hire different directors and writers and allows them to bring their unique talents to the table and do what they do. So we have James Gunn doing wonderful Guardians of the Galaxy films, and we have the Russo brothers making their wonderful movies with Captain America and the Avengers. But Kevin Feige, in the development phases, isn't afraid to say, no, that won't work. That's what happened with the first Ant-Man film. The director wanted to take it a different way, and Kevin Feige said no. They didn't even start filming the project, and Kevin Feige was in there and said, nope, that doesn't match the vision, the direction we're pushing the universe, so that won't work. And they brought in different people to make it work. Kathleen Kennedy never realized that she has to take on that role. She has to be a lot more hands-on in this new role as the producer of a cinematic universe now. She can't just be whatever type of producer she'd been in the past, working with Lucas and Spielberg and so forth. And this also speaks to what kind of involvement she most likely had on those earlier films, E.T., Back to the Futures, and all of that. She most likely wasn't involved in the creative process to any degree, if this is the type of producing she does now that she's on her own. She allowed Rian Johnson to throw out J.J. Abrams' outlines and to write his own second installment of that sequel trilogy. And that's placed them in all sorts of problem areas now, just from a story perspective. I mean, fans are speculating, but really, how can you move forward in any kind of direction that fans are going to applaud at this point? For the Solo film, she hired Lord and Miller and let them do whatever they wanted to do, and they were already doing it. And she came in incredibly late after the fact, didn't like what they were doing, so fired them. She should have done that way back in development. She should be, if she's going to be the Kevin Feige of this universe, she should be far more hands-on. And aside from being unqualified, or aside from wanting to push her politics into the movies, aside from all of that, that's the real problem, that she doesn't know how to be the type of producer that a shared universe demands. And that's the real problem, because a shared universe, I've talked about this a little bit before in certain videos, it's a completely new beast, a completely different genre of filmmaking, and a lot of people don't realize that yet. Yes, we do have to focus on the films. The films need to be good, coherent, cohesive stories within themselves, or within their trilogies, if they're part of trilogies or whatever. But they also have to be a effective piece of the overall story of the shared universe. And if they aren't, then that hurts the entire universe. People don't like to mention the Hulk film much because it set up some things that have never been explored or explained, such as the creation of the Thinker. That's one rare little glitch in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, just as an example. How in the world do you tell a third installment of a trilogy with characters that have been so thoroughly deconstructed that no one cares about them anymore? How do you continue to tell anthology stories with no direction or no coherent vision for the manner in which these iconic and newer characters should be treated? It almost feels like Solo was made for the express purpose of explaining the dice that Han gives Leia in The Force Awakens. And that is not enough reason to make a film by any means. So much of the world building in the Lucasfilm universe right now seems to be happening after the fact. It seems to be in crisis management and covering things up and fixing things later. And then once those things are fixed, the ball is passed to somebody else and they just throw a bunch of stuff in the air again and then have to go pick it all up and try to make sense of it later. I can't really think of somebody besides Kevin Feige who's done such a great job of a shared cinematic universe. We don't really have any other examples, unless you want to count James Wan with the Conjuring films, but that's not really the same thing. It's not as frequent of a universe. They're not as interconnected as something like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because you're not desperately looking forward to the next film that'll show this character to come back in the fray, and I don't know if they've got a overall sense of arc they're trying to tell other than decent interconnectivity thus far. But I think the industry, and specifically producers, from here on out need to learn their lesson. Whoever does replace Kathleen Kennedy, and I'm confident that someone is going to end up replacing her. I can't see Disney keeping her in the position much longer at this point. But whoever does replace her, with all of the other things that they'll need to understand and respect, they'll definitely need to understand the role, the job. It's not a traditional producer. It is a necessarily creatively hands-on job now. So that's all I have for this video, just a short one. I had some thoughts on some of the headlines that were coming through. I will be back soon with some more comic reviews. Eventually we'll get to another archetype as well, so more good stuff on the way. Until then, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the hero stories you love. Thanks for watching.